Welcome to the Purple Rock Survivor podcast. I'm John, my co-host is Andy, and we are absolutely not switching things up this week. No surprises, no twists, just the two of us blathering on for about an hour about Survivor Kaoh Rong. And Andy, let's talk about the swap this week.
Yeah, it's good that we're recording. Usually our conversations about swapping are a little more on the down low.
Oh, God. I'm leaving that in.
I think the biggest conversation, and might as well just lead off with it, is the question, was Anna screwed by the swap?
Is it Anna or Anna?
It's probably Anna. I just always screw up names. It's my thing.
Oh, okay. That's your gimmick.
No, my gimmick is probably talking over you and arguing with ghosts.
Wow. So my answer to that, no, Anna was not screwed because swaps are a thing that happens in Survivor. It's not like they suddenly sprang this new twist on this cast. Like, I mean, you could say maybe in Africa, someone was screwed by the swap because they totally didn't see it coming. But at this point, you have to expect it and be prepared for it. So, I mean, really the one person that you could argue might have gotten screwed by the swap was Julia, who got stuck alone for 3 days. And I felt really, really bad for her.
Interesting. I did not expect your argument to be about the semantics of the word screwed. So let me phrase it a different way. Do you think that due to the dynamics of the perfectly normal swap that happens almost every other season, Anna was put in a no-win situation? Did she get unlucky, I guess is my question.
I mean, she didn't get lucky. Wow, we're going all out with these. She didn't get lucky, but she also didn't get completely screwed. There were certainly scenarios where she could have saved herself. She just didn't.
How so?
I think her first mistake was, and this kind of depends on how you read the edit, because Survivor has been known to throw some things out of sequence from time to time. But if she really is having those conversations in, like, you know, the first few hours after a swap of, hey, I'm throwing Ty under the bus here. He was looking for an idol. We should take him out. He's not to be trusted. Probably not the right move. Maybe take some time, put out some feelers, see if there's any cracks that you can actually exploit without tossing Ty's name out there.
Yeah, and I do think that's the argument people are making. I also think that you're being thrown off by me actually asking you questions and waiting for you to talk. I've just totally thrown you off your rhythms here.
It is very strange.
I think that's a lot of people. Like, she did not play the social game correctly, or she made herself appear to be too big a gamer and a threat. I've seen that argument floating around. Is that a correct assessment of the argument you're making to a degree?
No, I'm not saying she necessarily made herself look like too much of a gamer. I'm just saying the way she approached that situation was probably not right. Because I think, and obviously we're just Monday morning quarterbacking here because you don't know, but I think if she had laid back and waited to see, maybe Peter's willing to flip on the brains if they've got three. You know, if it's going to be her, Ty, and Scott, and they say, you know what, we're solid, well, you know, that might be enough to convince Peter to come over.
Yeah. And I think in a normal situation, I think you'd be onto something and that there would be a little bit more maneuverable. And I think the instinct for people to be like, stop saying Anna was screwed by the swap. This, you know, she could have done better, is that I think people prefer when they can attribute things in life, and especially things in Survivor, to the role of human agency. Because that's a lot more interesting to talk about, strategy, mistakes, that sort of thing, than just admitting that sometimes the capricious whims of luck and fate put us in certain situations. Because I do kind of think that she was in a no-win situation. I do think what happened was what was going to happen. It was her or Ty, and that's a tough one to win. Yeah, I'd accept the argument that maybe she could have won that. But the reason why this is different than other scenarios where you could maybe wait to see if the cracks expose and work your way there, the way like Tasha and Savage did last season, is the Julia aspect. I think the Julia aspect basically took almost all the plays available to her off the table.
Yeah, it certainly does make it tougher. I'm not saying that she wasn't, wow, there's so many negatives in that sentence. I'm saying she was unlucky. I'm just saying that it wasn't like a fatal swap for her. She certainly could have recovered. And she almost did. I mean, there was a scenario in play there where Ty was going to play his idol, to save her.
Yeah. And I mean, that's knowledge she couldn't have been working with, right? That's something Ty could have done. It's not like she could have ever worked that into her strategy, that I better not do this just in case Ty has that idol. Other than the fact that she kept saying Ty kept looking for an idol. And you tweeted this, and this part I agree with. Maybe don't put in the head of the people you're trying to get to vote for Ty that voting for him could be potentially dangerous.
Right.
So that maybe was the wrong play, but I kind of feel like there wasn't a right play. I don't think that there was a social game for her to work here. I don't think there was angles to expose, as I was alluding to, not, arguing you, but other points, that I don't think she was voted out because she was the threat, that she was exposed herself as a strategic threat. I think it was that Julia made it impossible for those people to work with them. Because even if Peter wanted to, even if Peter was itching and dying to, flip on Joe and Aubrey, who I think gave him plenty of reasons to, and we could discuss that, you can't just hand the majority over to the, 3 people. And that's what, Julia brought into that. So I think that's why this is a unique situation where you were saying that maybe Julia could say she was screwed by the swap because, it's unusual to be sent to an alternate location. Obviously, it's happened before. I think in both instances, it was not the best idea.
Mm-hmm. As I tweeted, this is borrowing an idea from Survivor Fiji.
Yeah.
Rarely a good idea.
Yeah, and I guess it happened in Panama as well.
Yeah.
I think Anna was equally screwed by that because like you saw it, both tribes are just like, we have to get rid of a beauty because a beauty is about to replace them.
Yeah, it was much more about numbers than about Anna being a threat.
Yeah, and then it just became the choice between her and Ty, and I don't think she lost that battle because they were more worried about her than Ty. Obviously, Peter advanced that argument a bit, but I think it was totally just about, hey, Ty is useful and she isn't as useful. And it's even like a thing where she was useless. It's just, Ty is really freaking useful.
Yeah. I still maintain that there's probably something she could have done to keep herself around in the game. It was unfortunate for her, but I wouldn't say that she was in the worst possible position.
Yeah, and I disagree. I think the fact that there was a beauty waiting to take the spot of the eliminated contestant totally changed the math on everything. It made it so imperative for everybody that wasn't a beauty to eliminate a beauty. Quickly, they did have the choice between her and Ty. Was she the right move?
Well, obviously I'm biased here, so of course I would say yes. I want more Ty on my screen. Why would I not say yes? It did look like, though, there was the early pitch from Aubrey to vote out Ty instead. And I actually wanted to discuss that because I want to see if you got the same feeling I did from this. And I'm just projecting here because obviously we didn't get enough of it to know exactly what Aubrey's motivations are. But she ends up relenting on that and going along with the Anna vote. And I'm wondering if that's because she realizes that it's just too early to worry about calling a specific shot, and it's just more important to take out someone that's not in your plans. Or is it just that she's too passive and she's not going to be able to make these calls at any point later on?
I think it's, you don't fuss too much. I think, Peter made his case, and I don't think they cared much about that. But then I think Joe is leaning that way, and maybe even Scott. And you don't fight. It's not that big a deal one way or another. The reason why I was interested, because for me, it's like, well, it's obviously got to be Anna. And not just because, horribly biased, but if you're just looking, the whole reason why this is dictated this way is they're afraid of Julia coming back and giving numbers. And if you're just kind of basing assumptions, wouldn't you assume that Julia is tighter with Anna than she is with Ty?
Yeah, I mean, not even just the gender thing, but the age thing. Yeah. She's a lot closer in age to Julia.
Everything. I bet they hung out together when they sat out challenges. Obviously Aubrey is not working with the information we have, but I think there would have been enough information. It's we gotta split that probable pair. But what's interesting is if it was Aubrey who first suggested Ty, there's 2 reasons. I mean, one is just, pick a name. But one reason could be that Ty concerned her more in a post-merge situation. They're like, hey, this guy is going to be really liked and difficult to beat. If that's the case, say a little too early for that.
Yep.
But the other thought I had is maybe Aubrey didn't mind the idea of that tribe having more women around than men.
That certainly did come up on the other tribe, so it's entirely possible.
Yeah, so if so, it's not a bad idea to work, to at least try for it, but again, not try too hard. actually, while we're talking about it, like, how weird was it that when Peter presents the idea, which I think was the complete, correct, and rational strategy of we need to get rid of a beauty and Anna is the better one to get rid of, Joe and Aubrey's like, yeah, okay, that's nice. Now move along now so we can talk about it.
The adults are talking, Peter.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is kind of the season that I think is shaping up to be in Survivor, that like both halves of a disagreement or an argument or a rivalry, they both suck on some level. Cause yeah, I get how they're kind of like just, they're tired of Peter's, stuff. But that was just so bad. Like Peter is bad at Survivor and we're gonna have fun talking about that, but that was horrible by Joe, especially, I think. You need this guy! You need this guy right now! You don't say, okay, well the two of us are gonna make the decision. No, that should be a 3-person decision.
Yeah, if anything, you just play the diplomatic thing and say, that is a great idea, Peter, but here's what we were thinking. Just do the diplomatic transition rather than being like, oh, okay, that's great. So here's what we're actually going to do, though.
Yeah, and like, it's perfectly fine if after they disengage with Peter that Aubrey and Joe want to check with each other and discuss, but you don't make it sound like, okay, we've taken your suggestion, but now the grown-ups get to make the decision and you're lucky, to be a part of our little thing, Peter.
Crazy.
That's not the case anymore. That was the case like that morning, maybe? But no, Peter should be treated like an essential part of your 3-person alliance. Even if, as Aubrey said in the confessional, she's not sure she can trust him, you don't put it out there that, oh, we don't trust you anymore, but, we'll let you vote with us because that'll be lucky. Not like, hey, run along and talk to the other majority people while we decide something. Like, that blew my mind of how bad that was.
Like I said, it's hard to get a clear read on exactly what Aubrey was doing. I think at that point, that was really more Joe's mistake. Yeah. So it could have just been Aubrey going along with it because, again, don't push too hard. It's still pre-merge.
I actually have sympathy for Aubrey that she landed on this tribe with Joe and Peter. Like, I think that was probably the worst draw of, like, if she was lucky enough to be with 2 members of her tribe, these were the worst 2 for her to land with.
Yeah.
So I have sympathy that she has to deal with that. Of like, it doesn't take long to, knowing Peter to not like him. And Joe, who I think is probably pretty awful at the social component of Survivor. But yeah, it was just baffling that it's like this guy who, you're worried about flipping on you. You just completely, show him that's like, you don't really get a vote.
Yeah, we haven't really gotten any, like, lovable curmudgeon Joe stuff yet. We're not getting the Rudy vibe.
Yeah, I don't think it's coming. And, like, to say I don't look like he's an awful person, I think he's, probably pretty grumpy and dealing with all this stuff. Seems like a pretty hard place to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, it has been living up to the hype of being the most brutal season so far.
Yeah, so that's just one thing that, really jumped out at me. And more, I was just kind of curious. It'd be interesting what Aubrey's other values were, but total fan fiction. The other big question, speaking to the fact that Anna did have 1 out, is Ty could have played his idol. Should he have?
I was a little surprised he showed it, first of all. It's going to come into play later. I feel like Ty's undoing in this game is going to be the fact that he's just too nice and too trusting. If I were in his position, I tend to be overly risk averse, so I think I might have actually played it if I were him. The one thing that would make me hesitate, though, is that if he had suspicions, and I probably would, that Anna wasn't all that on board with me, maybe I'm not so concerned with keeping Anna around by taking Peter out.
Right, so you're suggesting that, like, you might have, due to being risk averse, you might have played your idol for Anna, or that you would have played it for yourself?
No, I would have played it for myself. I wouldn't have wanted to play it for Anna just because once Julia then comes to join you, you're now expendable to Anna and you have no more idol.
Yeah, like a lot of people are, and I think these people are probably motivated by their desire to continue to see Anna succeed in this game. Or like, oh, I should have played it and taken control, because then, there would have been 3 beauties. I imagine Scott would have stayed on their side, and it would have been a 4-2, but that's for like 2 votes. I think, and actually, if we want to get back to things that Anna could have done better, I don't think it was so much from the swap on. I do think from the swap on, there was very little room to maneuver. If she was able to do it, then it would have been an amazing play, not that her absence of doing it was a bad play. But it might have been in the pre-merge phase, or the pre-swap phase. It might have been on the Beauty Tribe, in that, we were too focused on the fact that, like on the Brawn Tribe, everybody was making one person feel like garbage all the time. On the Brain Tribe, they clearly had this dangling thread of Peter out there. Those are the people who were worried about, like, oh, they're gonna be trouble on the swap. But on the Beauty Tribe, while they were all getting along, those three girls were pretty clearly signaling to every other guy there that these are, it's an unbreakable bond of three.
Yeah, we'd gotten some confessionals from, I think, just about every guy that they knew those three women were tight.
Yeah, and then once Caleb went, then it was kind of game over. In Caleb's exit interviews, he spoke to the idea that he tried to find cracks in those three, because they were recruiting him.
Crazy.
They were recruiting him, as I'm sure they were recruiting all of them, due diligence. But it was obvious that those three would never, split on one another. And that makes it more like you're saying. Well, why should Ty save one of those three? Final four isn't that big a deal. So yeah, he would have been able to take control for the next two votes, but then you got a merge scenario, and you're at best the fourth in a 4-person alliance, and you might need that idol later down the road.
Yeah. Like I said, the only reason that I would play it in Ty's position would be to play it on myself. I would not give it up for Anna.
And look, now it's basically a reset next week. He still has a potential of 2 alliances and an idol. Like, if he needs it next week to take control of that tribe, he can. And he can do so from a greater position of power, because that 3-person alliance that had been controlling the game that he had been playing up until that point is no more. Anna obviously is the most self-interested party in her success, has been tweeting out a few times, like, I really thought Ty would want to play the idol and take, control of the game. It's like, okay, Anna, which of your 2 female alliance partners' spot in the final 3 did you offer Ty? Because my guess is 0. My guess is that she never suggested to Ty that you're my alliance partner now. And in fact, later on in an exit interview, she said that, like, oh no, I felt so connected to those women, I would never vote them out. So yeah, you don't save somebody who isn't your main ally.
Yeah, and like I said, we had pretty clear indications that all the guys knew that.
Mm. Yeah, and that's the flaw. It's like they weren't being mean, they weren't being excluded. I do believe that tribe got along, but they had made very clear that we are a tight alliance of 3 and you guys aren't, and that is a bit of a mistake. It's why you don't name your alliance based on numbers and that sort of thing. Even if it's a lie. Like, I don't have a problem at all of them actually forming the 3-person alliance amongst themselves, but you should make, a 4th or 5th person feel like not only are they part of your alliance, but they have potential of being in the final, configure of the alliance, not just the outer layers. So, if she made a mistake at all, is that I don't think Ty felt comfortable enough with her at any point in the game. Why should he play his idol? Even, a sweet guy like Ty might be like, you know what, I'll hang on to this one.
We should talk about the lone Brawn representative on that tribe, who I thought actually played pretty well this week. I
thought he had the best week. I was most impressed by Scott Pollard this week than anybody.
Yeah, I mean, he certainly got a pretty decent read of the room pretty quickly.
He recognizes that Ty is amazing.
Well, who doesn't, though? I mean, you can't credit the man for seeing what's so obvious. But I did like, though, that he was not only willing to say, okay, yeah, I'm going to go in with Ty and we're going to get this plan. We're all going to take out Anna together. But he was also like, no, Ty, you need to keep your idol, and I want to be the only one that knows where 2 idols are in this game.
Yeah, no, I thought that was a good play. I don't know how much that will actually come to pass. Afterwards, it's like, I don't really see, Jason especially ever playing his idol to save Ty. It's not very likely that Ty would do the same for Jason, but I suppose maybe a little bit more. But I think that information has value. It certainly has more value than nothing.
Right. And so that was really what my takeaway was that the fact that he knows that is the value, because he can trade on that information to gain trust with a potential future alliance.
Yeah. And there's the potential, even if it's, in the single digits percentage, that they do find themselves in a scenario that it would make sense for them to combine the idol. Maybe it's a final 6 scenario, and then it's just like, okay, we can take control of this game and not have to do guesswork. If all 3 of them are not immune, for instance. So, like, that's a small percentage play, but that's more than nothing. Anna gives him nothing. Ty gives him something. So, yeah, I think that was good. And I do think in Survivor, knowledge is power. Maybe, yeah, it'll just be the brokering of that knowledge. Maybe down the road, he's able to use the information that Ty is a secret threat because of his idol, and now it's time to blindside him.
Right, and that's more the scenario I'm envisioning, because much like you, I don't really imagine that Jason's just going to willingly hand over an idol to Ty.
Or Scott, for instance, for that matter.
Yeah, exactly. I can potentially see Ty handing his idol over, but it's, to Jason, it's a little iffy.
Yeah, like I'm talking like, a 2% chance. And again, that's still better than nothing. And then, yeah, like it would have to be like a real scenario of us versus them. This is the time to play it. It doesn't have much value if we lose right now type scenario. Then maybe, because if he gets rid of Ty now, they blindside Ty, that idol goes back into play, and now that knowledge is not out there for Scott. Scott cannot be blindsided very easily by 2 of the 3 idols in this game now.
Right, and perhaps more importantly, once they get to emerge, him knowing where those 2 idols are allows him to take the target off of himself, because he's clearly going to be targeted as an immunity challenge threat, even though I imagine a lot of those challenges will not be suited to him. He can then say, hey guys, just so you know, we've really got to focus on getting Ty and or Jason out.
Yeah. So I think that was good. And I just think the whole way he played it, he did the thing that you're suggesting that Anna should have done, which is, kind of laid back and let the action come to him. And I would say, again, in a normal swap scenario, I think that's a perfectly fair criticism. I just think the fact that there was a beauty person waiting to take the spot just changes the math so much on that.
Yeah.
Like, if it was not a beauty person on that, and Anna gets voted out, then yeah, I would be fine to say, yeah, you should have done more. But I just think that just made any kind of negotiation impossible.
Yeah, he certainly did have more luxury to sit back and wait for things to happen.
Yeah, but the brains confided in him. He was a power broker there. Ty confided in him. The brains have no idea that he flipped their information and almost turned the game against them. They have no idea that he is working potentially with Ty and maybe Julia when it comes out. So he has all of the options. He had them this week and he'll have them next week. But
we've danced around it long enough. Let's talk about the one-man tire fire that is Peter.
Oh God, he is so bad at the Survivor stuff. It is genuinely laughable. Like, I laughed out loud a few times.
Yes, and that's what I was going to say. He's hilariously awful. I want more people like Peter playing Survivor. I especially love, I don't know if you've caught on Twitter, he's getting all upset about his edit now. Like, okay, God, yes, I did say some things that were cocky, but I also said some things that weren't cocky,
And if you had done better in the game, we would be hearing those things. But right. You're not doing very well, and we're gonna have our laughs. Yeah, I know, I think it's great, because there isn't really anything mean-spirited about it, nope. His awfulness. And frankly, his awfulness is kind of localized to one area. His strategy isn't bad. It's been fine for him, and it's even been fine for the people he's been laying out the strategy to. Like, his ideas this week were the right ideas. They should have taken out a beauty for all the reasons already described. Anna should have been the target over Ty. His flaw is that he sucks at people.
He really does. And I imagine it comes from, because I mentioned in our season preview podcast, just ER doctors have a certain self-confidence that might be slightly higher than the rest of the population. And I think part of it too might happen to be because in his job, he so frequently has to give like the non-emotional, here are the facts types of answers. Like, okay, you have to get X operation. It's got a, X% chance of success. And family members crying all around, but you have to stay rock solid. So he's probably thinking like, oh, okay, I'm just going to lay out the facts for them and tell them exactly what they need to do, and they'll appreciate that.
Yeah, and I think that's a good observation, because that gets to what is, I think, putting people so off of him. Because he's not lying at all. He is being unfortunately truthful with people in a way that's, really not well received. And yeah, I'm not trying to spin this as some kind of virtue. I think too many people think like, oh, what an honest person. What a great thing that is virtuous. And my argument to that is not necessarily. There are things that we do as a polite society that we don't say. We don't tell people. And, he kind of doesn't seem to know that. And one of those things is you don't let people know when they aren't, having much chance at succeeding, or they're not on your level. And, and it was perfectly, shown when he's just like, yeah, we're talking about voting out one of you two.
Yeah. In case it wasn't entirely clear by the way we were hinting at it, let me just lay it all on the table right here.
Yeah, and it's one of those things like, oh, what a stand-up guy. He's telling us, like, no, what that is signaling to people, especially with your demeanor, is you don't matter in this variable and you have no say. I am stripping you of your human agency and I can just tell you these things because I am important and you are not.
I just love that he melted down the exact same way that he did in his first tribal council.
Yeah.
It's great.
And there is no reason to suspect that he won't, because what's even greater and why, I did laugh out loud. Actually, this is not even getting to the bigger laugh out loud moments, which is tribal council. We'll have to talk about that. Is even though, earlier that day or the day before, depending on the time, the chronology, that Joe and Aubrey sent him away like the little underling that he's had to become after losing Liz, he's still giving confessionals like, I've got not a care in the world. I'm on top of this. Like, how are you not humbled?
I told you. ER doctors come with a certain level of confidence that just can't be knocked down.
It's almost admirable in a way. It's like, well, you're not going to let the facts of your situation change who you are. You be you, Peter. You got to live.
Yeah. He's the guy that, he goes to the bar and he talked to 10 women. They all turned him down. And he's like, this 11th lady though, she'll see. She'll get it. Like, it just didn't bother him. The first 10 women were just wrong, that's all.
Clearly wrong. And, it continued at tribal council, and oh my god. Yeah, you tweeted this, and it's absolutely true. We need Peter to hang around for a few more tribal councils, because he just delivers.
I mean, wouldn't you rather, as a viewer, have a Peter in a tribal... let's just go with Peter, rather than a Peter, in a tribal council than someone like, Dan or Rodney or someone like that? Isn't this a much more entertaining person to watch?
But I honestly don't understand why there's vitriol between them. Like, he's fairly neutered in the game. And, you can just sit back and laugh at, how much he's struggling with the basic, human interactions of this game. It's fun. Again, there's nothing particularly mean-spirited other than the general arrogance and belief in himself, which I guess for some people is a complete deal breaker. For me on TV, it's like, especially because, the show isn't editing him to be a hero.
No, and what's funny is that, he should really just be taking Savage's advice from last season and start acting like a wimpy little non-leader.
He should be. And I think he was, and they show that, he's doing the stitching up and, I just gotta eat my, and then it just throws it out the window when he's given us the slightest bit of power of, by the, whims of, luck that, he is on the numbers. But it's like, you're not really, and you should be looking for a different scenario here. But no, that's all he needed to get back, get his swag back. And God bless you, Peter.
I hope it never leaves. It's so good.
Well, at some point it will, because, this guy is going to get beat. And even though at this point there's no way it should happen, it will still be a blindside to him.
It'll be great. That's why I want him around for longer.
Alright, so talking about people who, are actually doing some things well at Survivor, other than being good at Survivor, is Debbie good at Survivor?
Debbie... she's at least better than you'd expect, but that's really not saying much because I assume your expectations, much like mine, were very, very low.
And they got lower after meeting her.
Very much so. One thing that did surprise me was Debbie running the girl power game with Sydney. That was not something I saw coming, especially considering it being those two girls, but I guess that, they just bonded so quickly over the fact that one of Debbie's 13,000 jobs just happened to be bodybuilder for a few weeks.
Yeah, which is somewhat legitimate. We've seen incredibly disturbing pictures of her, like, 8-pack abdomen.
I sent that in the staff chat. It was great.
Oh, it was worse than a Rickroll. But yeah, no, like, I think her, of the 2 episodes we've got her executing, her strategy game has been on point, as evidenced by the way she got along with Sydney and Jason. I think her social game is pretty good too. I think the problem is I don't know if any of that'll matter, because I don't know if when presented with the option at a jury situation, you are all ever going to give this person credit for doing all the things she's doing. Because I think everything she's done is good.
And that's her main issue, is that being so outwardly goofy makes it hard to take you seriously, even if you actually are the mastermind that you're claiming in these confessionals.
Yeah, and like her outward goofiness could be providing a shield to allow her to operate on these strategic and social levels, but I think it's also destroying her credibility. And like amongst fans, that's kind of what happened with Rodney. I don't know if that's what happened on the island, although I kind of think it was that too, because, a lot of his castmates were later tweeting like, hey, well, who knew Rodney was actually running stuff? But people just couldn't take him seriously. And I kind of think that's what could happen with her, even though, other than the fact that she's a complete goofball, I don't know if I have any fault to find with her.
Yeah, and really the model that she needs to emulate is Tyson, to where you can be a certain level of goofy, but still get credit for what you're doing.
Yeah, and then the flaw there is it took Tyson 3 tries.
Exactly.
Although I will say, she's gonna get another try. I don't know if there's much doubt in my mind. I think they're already ready for a Debbie return. Mostly because they don't typically get female contestants like her.
Right. And especially older women.
Yeah, and like they just don't spotlight women as characters the way they are. So yeah, I think she's going to be around for a while, and we're going to see her again. And I mean, she's not really my cup of tea at all. But right now, I just kind of have to be like impressed, I guess is the word.
Debbie, go ahead and start making those pregame alliances with Caleb.
So that's one person I think did well, and then Jason and Sydney found themselves as the swing vote.
They were the John and Jacqueline.
Yeah. Do you think this is a permanent feature? Or I mean permanent as in continue on until next week? Do you think they're going to remain in power, or was this kind of a one-time deal?
The one thing I thought was interesting there was that it seemed more like Sydney was the person they wanted to work with, but Jason was just part of that package deal.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that might be true. I actually think, though, that might be a problem for Sydney because, again, Jason has that idol and might be underestimated. Then Sydney looking like the likable person, the more appealing target, might be a little riskier for her.
Yeah, I could see kind of the path you're going down is that could hurt Jason's ego, and he seems like the kind of person that would take measures to ensure that things are about him. Now, right. I should say, I think his affection for Sydney is genuine. I'm not denying that, but, Oh
yeah, I was absolutely projecting further down the road.
Yeah. I am not Sydney's sidekick, and I'll show you. Which, I can see Jason doing, because I don't believe he ever feels that he is the co-star in somebody else's drama.
Hey, that's something we share with him.
Honestly, and maybe this is actually true for Jason as an aside. Once you become a parent, you realize that you are a supporting member in somebody else's story.
I was really more referring to the podcast.
But on the podcast, we both know, without a shadow of a doubt, who the sidekick is.
Yes.
And the answer is...
the person on the other side of this podcast.
It is the tension that hopefully leads to good podcasting. But, kind of the bigger question is, I don't know if it was a permanent feature, because I do believe everything that we saw this episode was driven by the fact that Julia was set to come back in the game. So I don't know if Beauty will remain the big targets anymore, because the threat has now been minimized.
I mean, they still have 4, I guess, at that point.
But the brains have 5.
I was gonna say, I guess at that point then, Sydney and Jason, as those swing voters, maybe can say, all right, Beauty, we're teaming up with you guys. Let's take out one of these 2 brains.
Yeah, and I think, to continue my thought, I do think actually Jason and Sydney will be able to remain in power. It's just the power might shift. And another reason for that, obviously the basic math is the one, but I think the other one is that both sides, the Beauty and the Brains, spent their time trying to court Jason and Sydney. They did not try to spend their time courting one another. Thus, I don't believe they will be able to shift and try to vote out one of them. But I don't know if Jason and Sydney will continue to be motivated to vote against the Beauty.
Well, we should maybe get into the root causes of why they might have been recruiting those two specific players.
And the reason why Scott was seemingly not a target at all.
Right. The intentional mat singing. For those of you that did not watch Survivor Philippines, spoiler alert, there was a tribe, Mat Sing, that was terrible at challenges. They kept losing and losing and losing until finally their tribe was dissolved, and they went into tribes that really hadn't suffered any defeats yet. And so those tribes were just itching to take each other out to gain superiority. And then those two original Mat Sing members ended up making it all the way to the end of the game. Well, Final four.
Yeah. And that was a 3-tribe scenario, and that's the idea. And I believe that RHAP is kind of the originator of this idea, but it obviously bounces around the entire Survivor community, as frankly, most ideas that originate in RHAP. Is that, should this be a thing that you should do? Because then Cagayan comes along, another 3-tribe season, and Luzon takes all those L's, other than one. Mm-hmm. And the swap comes, and suddenly they're in power, and those 3 end up being in the final, 6? So they go from, losing all the time to, I believe, Tasha, Spencer, and Cass were in the final 6.
I think they all made it, yeah.
But basically the idea is, maybe you should lose. The intentional match thing is, maybe you should be on the tribe that loses, and you should, in fact, do things to ensure that you lose, so that you can cast away all of your dead weight prior to swaps or mergers. The other tribe never gets to take care of business, and thus they have a lot of, unresolved tensions once it comes time. And also, you're game ready. You've done the strategizing. You've done the voting out. You've been to tribal council. The other people have not, stretched those legs. And after one episode, I gotta say, maybe they're starting to something to this. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we do have a fairly limited sample size to judge this on, but it does seem to be somewhat effective in that small sample size, right? It's at least worth further study. If this were an actual experiment, they'd be like, you know what? There's a hypothesis forming. Let's keep testing this.
Actually, so the other one we missed was Worlds Apart, where the no-collar tribe was taking the losses. But then once the swap came along, we lost a white collar and we lost a blue collar. Oh no, we lost 2 white collars, I guess. Max and Joaquin.
Yeah, at the swap, yeah.
Yeah.
Although, so then in that scenario, it's not like the no-callers made it straight to the end.
But it's more that, in the swap, they were now, I think this is kind of the biggest argument for it is, the tribe that has less numbers is least threatening, and the other tribes will thus attack, if it's not internal, business that they want to take care of. They need to whittle away the big tribe. And that's kind of what's happening now, is that Beauty seemed to be they had the most numbers, so then they were attacked. Now, I think the Julia of it kind of throws off all the math. But it is part of it. I think, I've always been incredibly resistant to the idea of intentional matsing, because I always believe that you should, avoid tribal council when you can.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because it does seem like such a risky, counterintuitive strategy, but you can also see the clear benefits. I mean, we've already laid them out. And not only that, there's one more thing that we haven't really touched on. Depending on your level of conspiracy theory belief, does CBS and Survivor really want a boring season where, your little tribe of 2 or 3 that's left just ends up getting pagonged on whatever tribe they go on? Or do they want a more interesting show?
Yeah, I mean, that's the conspiracy of it, and you have to kind of, because I don't think that they would do things like, hey, don't vote out that person. More, where they would be is like, oh, let's swap before this thing is over. My thing is, my argument has always been, but I will say, what happened this week, and if it continues to happen, that the Brawn suddenly get to kind of hide in the background while people attack the numbers on the other side, that might convince me a bit more. But the problem is, maybe it's a great thing if you're Malcolm and Denise, if you're Spencer. It's not so great if you're Russell Swan. It's not so great if you're, Vince or something like. It's not so great if you're Jennifer Lanzetti of this season, right? Like, it's all great and well and good to be like, hey, maybe we should intentionally man sing so we can, whittle down our numbers to the essentials. What if you're not one of the essentials?
Right. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is you have to have your essentials clearly laid out and then a pecking order within that. Like, okay, well, here's our core 4. And then within that 4, here's the 3 we'd really keep.
And then within that, there's a 2, right? Like, that's the thing.
If it comes down to 2, it's just us, right, buddy?
Yeah, like Russell Swan was number 3.
Right.
Like the other ones didn't get down to 2 because they managed to win 1. Like Spencer came within, the whims of Cass of being the person eliminated instead of Chatia. So if anybody wants to say, hey, it worked out great for Spencer. He came this close to winning the whole thing. It's like, yeah, he also came this close to being a pre-swap boot. Jennifer was in the pecking order until she was out. So, I still think that, avoiding tribal council is better than not. However, I might be persuaded to at least want to look at more of the data, as you suggest, of if it's starting to go along the path of Matt Singh, maybe just go all the way.
Yeah, and because that's the thing, is if you half-ass it, I don't think it works. I think for it to be effective, you need to have one tribe that's fully intact, that hasn't gotten the chance to experience tribal council.
Right. So, yeah, because, that's the idea. And like we've seen it with Brains, is that as soon as they went to tribal council, suddenly, like, they hate each other.
Yes.
Now, we didn't really see it for Braun, and that's kind of, again, maybe a reason why the data points just don't work at all. The Julia on, Exile Beach is one thing, but the other thing is, like, they had a guy, like, medevaced. It wasn't like,
Mm-hmm.
So they shouldn't even have been, they should have been up numbers to the point where, and this is something I didn't put on here, but I want to discuss, is Caleb's evacuation is another thing that really kind of made this a really unlucky break for, not necessarily for Anna, but for Beauty in general. Because without that, and Jeff revealed in the episode, they would have swapped after 4.
Mm-hmm.
They wouldn't have had to do this Exile Island bit that made it even more difficult, right? With that, then, like, most likely scenario is Beauty would have had a majority on one of the 2 tribes.
Yep. But then, so if that other tribe where they didn't have a majority lost, they were definitely getting targeted.
Yeah. So, but like, where it looked like this episode that no matter which tribe loses, a Beauty is going home. That's where, like, Caleb's elimination was a really unlucky thing. And, like, to get to your very first point, screwed? No, you're not screwed by a medevac. You're not screwed by a swap. These are just things that happen. My point is, as unfun as it is, we can't, forget how much just pure random luck affects everything that we're watching in Survivor.
Very true. It's one of the skills you need to win.
Yeah. All right. So, I kind of think we touched on most of the things in the episode. What do you think?
Yeah. Let's get into some crazy medevac scenarios.
That's right. Nobody died this week or almost died. So, back to our game. So you're up 2-1, which, you won the last time we did this. So would you like to lead it off?
I always get confused. So I'm leading off because I'm in the lead so far, right?
That's right. You're giving me a chance to possibly one-up you, although
Okay.
I can't come up with an idea that quickly.
Gotcha. All right. So you can try to drop the hammer after I throw this out there. So, okay. You went with a movie scenario in week 1 with the happening thing, and it beat my scenario, which it should have because it was the better scenario. Props to you. But as you know, I'm a huge cinema buff as well. So that is laughable because for those 5 of you that know, I never ever watch movies. So I'm going to go for something based on a movie this time as well, hoping that I can capitalize on that same sort of theatrical buff support that you got.
Okay, quickly, for everyone, take a moment out of your podcast and just let's do a little quick betting. How many years ago do you think this movie reference will be for our friend here?
Ooh, set the over under.
I'm going to put it at 10. I think maybe 10 years ago you were watching movies.
Okay. And so are you taking the over or the under here?
Over 10 years, yes.
Okay. Yeah, you're correct. It's way over. All right. So here's my scenario. Joe's infection in his finger is going to keep getting worse. All right. Because we saw Joe clearly has something wrong with his finger. Peter was looking at it. So eventually his fingertip is going to start to swell up and it's going to change color. And that's when we learn it's not actually an infection. Joe is actually E.T. E.T. went home after that movie, hit the gym for 40 years. Now he's back. He's Joe. And he's still got that crazy glowy finger power that E.T. had. So here's where it all breaks down. Next week's immunity challenge. They're going at it really hard. Joe collapses. Neil rushes over to help him. Joe's looking up at Neil and he realizes Neil looks just like a grown-up Elliot from E.T. So he reaches out, he touches Neil's finger and he says, phone home. And that's when Jeff calls in the chopper to send him back home.
He misunderstands the catchphrase.
Exactly. He's saying it to Neil and then Jeff hears phone home, calls in the chopper, they take Joe out.
What's unfortunate in this twist is that I believe the glowing finger had healing capabilities. So if just not for this misunderstanding, Joe would have been an incredible asset and maybe prevented the other two medevacs are going to happen. All right. It's plausible. I'm not going to say it couldn't happen. So I think maybe we've been too hung up, because this is how it's always happened in the past, that evacuations are for medical reasons. Mm-hmm. And that's where we've been going. We call them medevacs or whatever. But what if a player was evacuated, removed from the game, not through voting or their own decision, but it wasn't medical? So that's where I was going this week. And people who listen to the show more than once recognize, and maybe you can even hear it in my voice, I am Canadian, which is one of the many, many reasons why I will never be a contestant on Survivor. Other reasons being that I'm not particularly interesting or that I have a body of a podcaster. But the reason why I bring that up is that there is a citizenship requirement to play on the American version of Survivor. And it's just basically due to rights situations. Americans can only play in the American version. French people can only play on the French version. The reason why I can as a Canadian is the idea that one day there might be a Canadian version of Survivor, which would be the saddest version of Survivor ever. So obviously they believe that everybody on the cast is American. But what if, while they were filming, a long-form birth certificate for Peter gets out there?
Oh, no.
And they realize, legal thing, and even though the game's already started, we cannot have him play. He cannot win. What if we found out that this non-American player, who was not born in America like, we all thought, is thus ineligible and needs to be removed from his position in Survivor?
Oh, brutal turn of events for Dr. Obama.
And for the show in general. And look, yes. I'm not suggesting that, Peter was born in Kenya. I believe he lives in Minnesota. Maybe he, like myself, is one of those dirty Canadians always trying to get in the game. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, just the scandal that would rock the Survivor universe.
That's right. So show me the long-form birth certificate or I'm going to start a petition.
Okay. Sounds good. So your choices for this week. Joe is E.T. or Peter is actually a secret Canadian.
I don't know which one is worse.
We'll let the audience decide. We will have a predictions post up this week. And speaking of predictions, let's get into our predictions for the boot next week. Who do you got going home?
All right, so we'll get back now that we have tribes and we know what they are. Predict one player per tribe. I hope you're ready for that.
Nope, I only put one, so let's just wing it.
I'll start it off. Like a good, red-blooded Survivor watcher, I have no idea what these tribes are named, so I will start with the yellow tribe.
Okay.
I think the last thing we've talked about is Neil is the third person with the idol. And I wanted to talk about that real quickly in that, how everybody was, people get really excited when Survivor makes it more difficult for idols to be found, yes. Because it's so much more exciting. Was this all that exciting, people?
One thing that I saw thrown out there on the internet, and I feel like this might have been motivated by, I don't know, people that were really into Anna for whatever reasons, was that it was really unfair that they made those idols so easy to get for just men. Big,
burly, tough men like Neil and Ty.
Exactly.
Yeah, anybody who could hold a long pole.
Phrasing.
had a shot at this idol. Alicia could have had a shot at the idol. And if you listen to her exit interviews, she was saying, like, she tried. She tried climbing the tree. She tried cutting it down until they told her, Ixnay on the cutting of trees down, nay. It was just that she was muscled out of position because her spot was blown up. This is not a thing that favors one body type over another.
Yeah, and to be clear, when Survivor does tilt things against the women, we definitely call them out on it. This is just not one of those times.
Especially because our, community will be the first to point it out, and thus we will,
Yes.
credit that idea. As you say, this isn't one of those times. And, the point I was making is, that was a very perfunctory idol search, and I imagine it wasn't in sequence. I don't think that necessarily happened in the day before the swap. It might have happened any time after Liz was eliminated, and this was the time they could show it, because they had to. Though where I'm getting at is, just as it seems like idols are so easy to find in other scenarios, it could just be because editing isn't that interested in showing all the difficulty of finding idols. So I think Neil's search was just as difficult as Ty's. It's just, it wasn't interesting the third time around.
Right.
The reason why I bring this up is, so good for Neil. I think he actually had a decent episode in that he was in the episode. Good for you, Neil.
Yeah, about time.
He has the idol, but I still am predicting he goes home next week. I don't have a really good reason. A lot of it is just kind of let it ride, and more of the same from before, that he has not been a heavily featured player. But the other reason just kind of gets back to what I'm saying. I don't know if Jason and Sydney are still motivated to attack a beauty. I think now the motivation would be to bring the brains down one more, and then it's between Debbie and Neil. I think it's not hard to assume that Neil is the bigger target between the two of them, and also because we saw Debbie talking to Jason and Sydney, didn't really see a lot of Neil talking to Jason and Sydney, which isn't to say he didn't. I mean, if you had your choice of which footage to show, I think most people would choose Debbie going crazy than Neil. But I also think, he's been doing really good at challenges, if you follow him on Twitter. I'm not denying, I think he's telling the truth. He has been succeeding at the puzzle, and it sounds like they destroyed that puzzle this week. It sounds like it took about a minute for them to do it. So as bad as Anna and Peter looked, it's just more that they killed it. So it could be like, wow, this guy is powerful, he's the one to take out. And that's why I think it's Neil. And I think he will be blindsided. And thus, the idol will not matter.
Okay. I've got multiple ways that this could go down, but I'm going to end up on them deciding on taking out Purple Nick. I think Neil could be a potential target. I think they'll try to push the vote towards Nick. Either they just get the vote directly on Nick anyway, or Neil senses that it's him, he plays the idol, and then he takes out Nick.
Oh, okay. I definitely see that. Well, what do we think about the burgeoning romance of Debbie and Nick?
I kind of feel like calling him a Greek god might be overselling it.
Well, look, I don't know if all those Greek gods were good looking.
Yeah, listen, far be it from me to criticize the man's appearance.
All right. So that's one tribe. Now on to the blue tribe, the one that actually lost this week, and thus we have a little bit more data. So Julia is now back in that spot. I do think that means it is time to make a move for Scott and Ty. I don't think it'll involve the idol. I think we've already seen the cracks in the seams with the Brains tribe, or the Brains members of that tribe. We see a bit more in the preview of Joe being angry at Peter, which might suggest it's finally time for Peter to do that flip, to get the people that, betrayed him on the Liz one, that, have been treating him like an insolent child on this one. So I think Peter will be ready to flip, and then Peter will go home because he's a flipper.
Oh, that's a perfect scenario. That would be so great. Far more interesting than mine.
Yeah, I think they killed the flipper.
Okay. Flippers never win. So, yeah, my scenario is roughly the same. The only thing that changes is who's actually voted out. And I think that, they end up convincing, Peter joins that group of three and they do vote out Joe.
Yeah, and I agree. I think Peter will be totally motivated to do it. I think this time was because of the Julia thing. I think that just made it a non-starter. That would just surrender all the numbers and power. And like, I think Peter, again, as I said, has a decent mind for strategy. He's just, people don't like him. Like when Ty, after one conversation, is like, I don't like that guy. That's enough evidence for me.
If Ty's opinion of you isn't high, neither is mine.
So yeah, I can see him scrambling all around. They're like, hey, how about we just get rid of him? He's the biggest threat anyway. And that would still have the effect that we want of reducing the numbers to, 3 us, 2 them.
I do love that scenario. I almost want to switch now.
So there we go. I got Neo and Peter, and you have Joe and Nick.
Yep.
Hey, no ladies predicted.
Yeah. Actually, I'm hoping that, Debbie is legit and trying to keep the women together.
Yeah. I'm also hoping that maybe somebody, good emerges for this season. I'm not out. I'm not out on the season at all. Obviously, I expressed some reservations of where it will go. I think a lot of those reservations are still accurate, and in fact, maybe prescient. But I'm not complaining that much. I think it was a good episode for one thing. I think it was very interesting. But more than that, I'm just not too worried right now about the ongoing storylines, because I think here's the thing. I do think anybody could really emerge. I mean, not anybody. There's some people out there that ain't got no chance. But I think this season and its narrative thrust is probably going to be completely altered and changed by medevacs, yet still to come.
Right.
So people that might not be in a good situation now, people that are in a good situation now, could have that totally flipped around due to the capricious whims of luck and fate.
Right. And on that note, let's do some plugs. First of all, you can find almost all of our stuff on purplerockpodcast.com. We do weekly live blogs. Matt does those for us. We're doing a bracket right now to determine the best tribal council of all time. That's Andy's brainchild. We're now in the second round, so make sure you get in your votes for round 2. We're down to 32 tribal councils left. Next week we'll be at 16. So make sure you get your votes in.
Big surprises this week, huh?
Every vote does count. We actually had one tribal council that won by one single vote.
Yeah, and people can't see this because we'll only display percentages to make our totals look more impressive. No, because it helps discourage people from hammering on the votes because they don't know how much their single vote matters. So it was tied at 50%, but literally one vote. So that was really exciting. I was shocked by some of the results. Y'all don't really seem to care about final tribal councils.
No, you don't. So keep making your voices heard. It was funny. One of the things that happened when we posted the link on Reddit was someone was like, oh, this is so obvious which is going to win because of recency bias and blah, blah, blah. And I said, okay, well, which one is it then? Because, I want to see if you're right in a couple weeks. No answer.
Yeah. In fact, I think people theorized a couple different ones. It's like,
yeah. So if you're guessing a couple different ones, then it's not so obvious.
Yeah, I think there are clear leaders, and we called those ones number 1 seeds. Or number 2 seeds. But we've had I think a number 4 seed lose. Yep. So yeah, that's exciting from an upset standpoint, unless it just means that I did a bad job seeding.
Not out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah, it's there. But yeah, no, I think this one's fun. So yeah, go vote. Vote on multiple devices if you want to. But no cheating because this means nothing other than fun.
Where else can they find us?
You can follow us on Twitter. The show is Purple Rock Pod. I am Purple Rock Andy. You are Purple Rock John. I don't know why I'm saying it like this.
Way to go, robot. We also have a Tumblr page. What's that?
purplerockpodcast.tumblr.com, which frequently links to the content you'll find on our more interesting platforms. If you'd like to email us, you can do so at purplerockpodcast@gmail.com. Any feedback is appreciated, especially comments from our aforementioned website. So thank you all for participating. Thank you all for listening. What else should we do?
Hit the theme music.
That's what it's like when a woman wants a baby.